Hi lovelies and welcome to the Witch's Cookery. Since we have a couple of new faces here on this channel, I thought it would be time to do a little Q&A again where I answer your questions regarding witchcraft in general, my personal witchcraft practice, what it's like to be a YouTube witch or host witchcraft retreats, my personal life and the things that might interest you there. Settle in, get cozy, get comfy, and we're going to dive right into the questions that you have asked me here in my community tab and also over on Instagram, where I, by the way, in my stories share life updates, funny memes and everything witchcraft. If you want to follow along there too, feel free to do so. How did I know that I was a witch? Well, I don't think it's really about knowing, it's more about deciding. I think being a witch is a choice, it's a lifestyle, it's a philosophy, it's a lens through which you see the world, it's a way of behaving and a way of doing your life. And all of these things are connected to choices. So I looked at my hobbies and interests and I tried to find a term that kind of like describe that, and witchcraft is basically what came up. And it also helped me dig deeper into different techniques and different rituals and different ways to approach witchcraft in general. And while I still personally don't necessarily like the term witch because it just sounds so fictional, do use it here on the channel at least to describe what I do and what I like and what I believe in. How do you get over the idea of messing up spell work? To be honest, I never worry about messing up spell work, just because of the way I think it works. For me, spell work is more of an embellishment. It's a little ritual or something tangible that you do in order to help you find an attention or get clarity in your mind or get your energy flowing, get your butt up and do something, right? To give it a little energetical push, if you will. Do I think that Spellworks actually does the doings? No, I don't think so. I think it's a great cataclysm, something that gets you started, but the spell itself is not why something works or fails. Why something works or fails, I think, lies then only in the mundane, because you cannot do magic without mundane efforts. If you do a spell on weight loss and then you go and eat 10 donuts, then yeah, it's not the spell's fault. So I'm not quite sure how that question was meant, if I worry about maybe picking the wrong color candle or using sugar instead of salt. I mean, to me they're all inanimate objects without a soul and a life in them. You know what I mean? Not living objects. You are the one that gives them a significance or a symbolism or a purpose, and it's not that they hold that in them. Like a red candle is not destined to bring you your bow, right? Or a black candle is not able to protect you if you don't do anything else to protect yourself. It's just an item we pick because we see there's certain symbolism in it. So in the end, it doesn't matter. You can do spells however you see fit or however you want or with whatever you like. They're just representations of something personal to you. How do you get back in the flow of the craft after taking a break? I don't think I ever take a break per se, because for me, again, witchcraft is more of a lifestyle. It's a philosophy that I carry through the day with me. It's just how I do things, how I have a shower while I step in and cleanse myself of all the negativity from the day, or when I cook a meal and I stir love into it, or when I sit down in the evening because I need a little moment to breathe and I do breathwork or journal or do a tarot card pull. It's like little things that I do throughout the day. I might not do them every day, but I do them fairly regular because it's just a mindful practice for me. If you mean now ritual or spell work, because that is definitely something that I do not do on a regular basis. Like sometimes I might feel like, hey, I really want to do a cool ritual because that and that holiday is coming up, or because there's something awesome happening in my life that I for some reason want to commemorate or honor in a way. But you know, I might not do a ritual for 4 or 5 months. sometimes, or spell work for that matter, but I don't think that necessarily equals witchcraft. Witchcraft is much deeper, it's much broader, it's much more what you do on a daily basis and the light you see things in while you go through life. But if you feel you have lost that you're actually doing that mindfulness, I would maybe start with doing a very little thing every day. Something that you really look forward to, like any type of witchy activity that you're like, yes, this will really help me get excited about it again. If that's now only opening your window every night to look at the moon for a minute and think about in what shape it is and what stage it is and how that relates to your own life. Or if you use the morning to do a little sun salutation, soak up that solar energy. If you, instead of just drinking your coffee in the morning, set an intention with it, something little that just gives you a benefit, because that's what we are doing witchcraft for, right? To gain something from it. Someone wanted to know where I got all my knowledge from. Was it passed down from family? Did I learn it myself? Like, how did that came to be? So yes, a lot of the folklore tidbits that I know and the stuff about history I know from my family, from my especially dad being very interested in those things too, and always taking me on hikes and on vacations to like certain places and learning more about all of that. He's also a theologist, so he knows a lot about religion and all of that. So obviously I also soaked some of that in growing up. I was also the weird kid that would, for like Christmas presents, ask for books about history and the medieval ages and herbs and stuff like that. So in a way I was brought up with it. A lot of what I show here on my channel is also just culture and traditions. The food I make, the plants I work with, the rituals in a way that I do that you all title as witchcraft, but that are not necessarily titled witchcraft here. It's more titled tradition. But then of course there's a lot of stuff that I also taught myself because I was just interested in it. A lot of how I see witchcraft is spicy psychology. Through my psychology studies I found ways to combine the scientific knowledge with more of the non-palpable, magical little glitters, activities and habits and routines you can establish. I taught myself more about divination, oracle, tarot. I'm still very much a beginner and I constantly forget the meaning of the cards, but I still like to do it. I like to include it. For me personally, one of the reasons to be a witch is also to get to know yourself, to reflect a lot and to just be more sure of your place in the world and to be more self-assured and more empowered. Gathering all that knowledge and then applying it in a way that really helps you be stronger, be kinder, grow more. That is where the real magic happens and where your intuition comes in, where you can work with all those more transcendent qualities, if you like. Deity or deities? No, first of all, my practice is completely secular. I don't involve any type of religious affiliations or deities into the mix. I know that people use them as archetypes. If I work with archetypes, I come up with my own archetypes. Figures that are more tangible or modern to me, or like figures from a TV or literature, for example. I'm agnostic / atheist, so no. I still love to read up on mythology though. It's like an interesting topic, what people came up with and the figures they created, but it's not a part of my practice. What is your favorite gemstone or crystal? Well, I don't have one. I do have crystals, but only because people gift them to me and then, well, I just keep them. But I personally don't buy them because the chances that they are mined and really hurting people and nature are just too high. And even if the saleswoman in your local metaphysical store is the loveliest little butterfly and might seem like she's the greatest person on earth, which she might even be, the things that they sell are still coming from areas where people are being exploited. And someone actually asked, I love witchy things, but I'm not a ritual person. I don't want to follow all the practices. Can I still be a witch? And that ties right into that. Yes, of course, you can be a witch. Being a witch is not one specific practice or even a set of practices. It looks different from person to person. It's a huge umbrella term that people might understand different things under. So you can practice in a way you see fit. You can call yourself a witch and do the little things that bring you joy, or just see the magic in the mundane without having to do like a full-on naked dance parties, sacrificing God knows what under the blood moon. But, you know, do it in a way that brings you joy and that you feel magical, and be a witch. And obviously only do the practices that you enjoy and that you feel are helpful in your life. There are so many practices that I don't do, that I don't know anything about, and that I also am just not interested in. And I'm sure there are many things that I do that other people don't do in their practice. Many people asked about favorite books, podcasts, YouTubers for learning more about witchcraft, as well as fun fiction witchy books you love. I have to say, I don't really consume much witchcraft content just because it's already my job. Like, when I want to relax, I want to see something stupid like Charlotte Dobre, or like aesthetic, lovely vlogger, or, you know, just trash TV. So I could shout out channels again, but these are channels that I watched more when I started here on YouTube myself. So I'm sure there is a bunch of new channels out there that are just not so well known yet, but they might be making really good content. So please, if you're watching this and you have your own witchcraft channel, put it down in the description box and just be like, hey, here, YouTube witch here, please check me out. And then we all find new cool magical stuff on the internet. One channel I will mention though, because she just made a beautiful video of the Beltane retreat that I hosted, is Tales of Balkan Magic. I'm gonna link her too, because then you can have a little glimpse. I don't really like a lot of witchcraft books because I'm more into folklore and folk beliefs, and these are usually the books that don't have witchcraft on the title. I like books about psychology, about behavior, about human nature. And when we get to fiction witchy books, I know you know what I want to say, but it will always stay the same answer. Terry Pratchett. I'm sorry. If you haven't read any of his witches books, because he has written 1,000 of them, I would start with Equal Rights, which I think is the first one. The Tiffany Aching series is considered for younger readers, but it's absolutely, like, you can read it when you are 100 years old too and still find so much wit and cool stuff in there. I believe the first one here is We Free Men. And what I love about him is that, yes, it's a fictional world and it's meant to be fantasy, but the way he describes witchcraft, I find, has much more truth to it than a lot of the witchcraft books published. Very observant, very much the headology and, you know, just how humans work. For me, it's a great combination between fantasy, psychology, and also some knowledge about witchery. Not to forget the many folklore and mythology Easter eggs thrown in the mix there. There were many questions asking me about my plans on writing a magical cookbook or a book in general, and in the past I have been getting book contracts that I was very excited about, and I started to work with them, I started to write, and then I realized how freaking much time it costs and how little you actually get out of it, other than obviously having a book published in your name, which is pretty neat, to be honest. But for me, it was just not feasible, because this is obviously my job, it's my income, I have to feed my family from this. So I didn't have that huge chunk of time to abide to all of their deadlines by still doing all my workshops and all my studies and my channel and these things. So it's in the workings, but I canceled the contracts that I had, and I was like, if I'm going to publish something, I'm going to self-publish, because then I also have much more control about design and, you know, can really make it my baby. So it is coming, but it will be taking a little bit longer. In the meantime, you can enjoy recipes in my vlogs or over on Patreon, and hopefully that is enough magic for you at this moment. At the topic of work, a fellow wrangler of crotch goblins and aspiring YouTuber is asking me, how do you manage to film, edit, and do all the other stuff that goes into it while being a full-time mama. What does your workflow look like? Well, I think the most important thing that you have to think about is staying flexible. Just working around your schedule with the kids. For me, that looks mainly like working when they're sleeping. So early in the morning, late at night, and when I film, since my kids really enjoy also helping me with the cooking and all of that, I can film while they're there, while they're doing stuff with me and they're actually having fun doing that. Obviously, depending on the content you're going to film, that might not be an opportunity. It is a bit crazy. It's also good to keep in mind that YouTube is fantastic to tap into your creativity and to have fun with like shooting videos. It's not really a platform where you will make your income, where you will, you know, pay your bills from, unless you're using it to monetize a certain product or sell something or market yourself in a way additionally to that. So I guess in the end, you really have to think about, what is YouTube worth to me? What am I using it for? And is it worth the time and effort that I put into it? Workflow wise, I always stay alert. If an idea pops into my head, I'll immediately jot it down on my phone for a video. And then the rest of the day, while I go through my household duties and being with the kids, I think about it constantly. Just on the go, jot down other ideas and inspirations and thoughts. Little pieces of wisdom that float in there. And while we're chatting about YouTube and social media, someone is asking, how do you deal with negative Nancy's in the social media world? Ignore, send sarcastic replies? I'm very blessed with my channel. We have a wonderful community here. I don't really get many bad or snarky comments. It's mainly like these like religious bots that sometimes pop up, and then I will just block because, you know, no one is on a Witchcraft channel to see that. I don't believe in replying to troll comments or bad comments because you're not going to convince someone of your point of view. If they already watched your videos and left something negative, then obviously they don't want to see the positive. So I'm not gonna like invest my time and energy into their issues, right? Very much how I would also do it in real life. I'm just being me, take it or leave it. But I'm not going to run after you to convince you of something. I think another really important thing to keep in mind here is also people who are neurodivergent, who sometimes have more difficulty expressing themselves or being understood in a way they meant it. And sometimes that can come across a bit harsh, even though they didn't mean it that way or they came from a good place. So I also don't like to reply negatively to those comments where I kind of like suspect something like that going on. People that are just plain rude or post things that I know will make other people feel bad that read it, I will absolutely block from my channel. As the creator of it, I luckily have that function, and then they can still see my content, they can still comment, but their comments don't appear publicly, or even for me, no one can see them anymore. Then there were a ton of questions about my kids. So I have 2 kids. They just turned 2 and 5 and are doing very well. Thank you for asking. The little plum dumplings. And many people wanted to know how I involve them in my craft, how I teach them, how much I tell them about this is witchcraft or not. First of all, yes, I involve them a lot because for me magic is just my life. Right? It's just how I live my life and how I see nature and how I see my daily chores. And since they are constantly around me, they are also part of my chores in my daily life. So when we're walking outside or we're doing a hike or an excursion to some historic place, I tell them a lot about the folklore. I tell them a lot about old traditions and customs from the area and what people used to believe about plant and plant spirit. I also teach them about herbalism, which plants they can gather, they can eat, they can use for certain purposes. And then we will also take said herbs to the kitchen and make something that they enjoy. I love seasonal celebrations. So in our house, we're usually doing like bucket lists that we want to do for the time between the holidays on the Wheel of Year, for example, like just seasonal activities like going to the strawberry field or gathering autumn leaves, going to a May dance, those things. Of course, I also teach them about things like meditation or breath work when they're very worked up about things and when they're very in their emotions. I try to give them child-friendly, guided meditations in order to calm down a bit and learn how to regulate themselves in a healthy way, how to feel better, how to cleanse that energy. I also really try to instill two main things in them. The one is gratitude for everything. So ask them every day, hey, what was your favorite part of the day or of the adventure that you went on today? And the other thing is intention. So I also try to get across the idea of you can do anything and everything with intention, because it helps you to focus on a goal or a feeling or energy that you need, and you can tie that to any activity that you do. Obviously, when they're older, I would also love to teach them a bit more about journaling and shadow work, but I mean, they're still tiny, so it might be a bit too early for that. Do I ever title it as Witchcraft? No, just because the word here has a different meaning, the culture here is a bit different. So if I talk maybe about the wheel of year, like the different holidays, and I use the English terms for them, then I might explain a bit more about what Wicca is, what the Celts used to celebrate, where it historically came from, and that some people that call themselves like neo-pagans or witches use those terms. But since for most of the holidays we have a local celebration anyway, I just teach them that, and that is more from the Catholic context. I usually just teach them that, and that's just their tradition. It's, you know, what other people celebrate and know too, so it doesn't really have to do anything with witchcraft. I feel like if I say the word witch or witchcraft, they immediately think like Harry Potter or something like fictional, so I don't want to confuse them with the essence of what it is really like, because I do actually think that a lot of people in the online community, when they first come into this world, are also a bit confused. And I believe that a lot of people think that witchcraft is much more woo-woo or out there or paranormal than it actually is. What is your Enneagram number? So I'm a 7 with a 6 wing, and I believe that is called the Entertainer. I looked it up for you. I'll read it because I cannot remember. Apparently I'm optimistic, driven by ideas, enthusiastic, and excited by uplifting experiences. Yeah, this kind of like describes me to a T. Multitasker, thinking quickly, absolutely me. Like I'm very quick on my feet if I have to be. I thrive and I have to do multiple things at the same time. I'm a natural optimist. I really can get excited if I have a great idea and I want to make it happen, and I want to make it happen now. This has helped me both in business as well as in personal life to make like good instinctual gut decisions. Work hard and see potential in the darkest of places. Definitely also true. Every time I'm thrown into a crisis, I will take that lemon and make it into the most lovely salty margarita that you can imagine. And I think a witchcraft practice and a mindful meditative witchcraft practice really helps me here to not lean into that energy too much, but to also find back, ground myself, come down to the earth. When I'm flying too high, I get too excited. So with all of these like personality tests, what have you not, Myers-Briggs and 16 personalities, or also astrology or natal chart, human design, I don't think any of them are completely able to capture your entire personality and all the facets of you. But I think what they do is to give you a great reflection and reference point where you can read through the different ideas about said personality and then see, hey, where do I find myself in that? And where do I also feel certain dangers, like things that I could possibly lean in too much if I'm not careful. So it helps you really with figuring out how to utilize what you've been given or your personality or your character to the most positive things, while also being aware of the possible traps. If you know your Enneagram number, I would love to read about it. Leave it down in the comments below. Do you have any resources on traditional German witchcraft? So traditional German witchcraft, yes. First of all, avoid all books that say witchcraft, because there is a big chance that there is nothing really traditional in it, and that it's also not based on German folklore, but more on, for example, the island Celtic, like UK type of like lore and traditions. Problem that we have here is that most sources will be written in either German or even worse, in the local dialect of a certain area. I have a ton of books and they're all written in the Upper Palatinate Bavarian, which even if you know German, you will not understand. So that's what I recommend. Like, go to a specific cultural area, regional area, and then look into the books of folklore that are written about that. This one, for example, is a really good one on where I live, Sitten und Sagen aus der Oberpfalz. So you find, for example, love magic in here, right? Like all the different traditions and beliefs they had about certain herbs or certain times in the year and what you would like have to do in order to attract your lover. So here, for example, you would take a 4-leaved clover, slip it into your shoes, and that would make you into a femme fatale. Especially in Germany, you will find a lot about like the old beliefs, the old Germanic and Celtic beliefs that you can see here, the wild hunt, but also how it's kind of like tied into like the Catholicism that we have here in the south, or the Protestant beliefs and traditions that we have up in the north. But yeah, these books are not available in English, for sure. One thing that is definitely available in an English translation, in 1835, Jakob Grimm wrote the Deutsche Mythologie. I think in English it's called Teutonic Mythology. I'm not quite sure. This is one of the 5 books, and it has just a ton of local traditions, local folk practices. It has a lot about the old gods, and it is just a comparative work. Like, this was written before internet, before, you know, it was easy to just get this knowledge. Like, he actually had to travel and compare and learn from people. I do have to say it's not an easy read, not even in its original form. And I would also say if you do not speak any sort of Latin, or at least one of the Scandinavian languages, it will also be a bit harder to understand because there's a lot of referencing in here. Second one, you learn a lot about the deities, temples and altars, Wotan, Donor, Fro, other gods and goddesses, heroes, witches, souls and death, magic and sorcery, and then also a lot about herbs and stones. So that one is a pretty good starting point, I'd say. How old am I? I am 33, but since the pandemic I kind of stopped counting. I think because I had to skip a couple of birthday parties, so sometimes in my head I'm 29. I don't know. I was born in 91. But I do have to say I'm someone that's not very concerned with age. I know some people are very anxious when they get to a certain number, or they feel more maybe the pressures of society, but they should have arrived at a certain age. I don't really have that. I just sail through life, and I'm more of a person like I'm however old I feel on the inside. Depending on the day, that might be 5 or it might be 500. How long have you been married? I have been married for 5 months now. I actually never planned on marrying, but then the tax office came and they were like, you owe us that amount of money. And in Germany, you get a big tax break if you are married. So I kind of rushed to my partner and I was like, it's the end of the year, we have 1 week to get married. And then I hassled the poor people in City Hall to be like, I need to be married now, so it still counts for the last fiscal year, and they made it happen. Thank you so much, and sorry for being such a pain in your ass. So yes, I am a married woman now. I think at some point in a couple of years I might do like a huge kind of like party to, I don't know, make it more special than only the practical German tax wedding. And maybe also do like a cool fire ritual, like something more witchy or medieval with like, for sure flower crowns will be in the mix there, or we do it in the winter in the mountains. I don't know. Something cool, but not right now. Don't have the time, maybe when the kids are a bit older. Do you plan on more kids? I really wanted to have a lot of kids. I would have loved to have 4 kids, but I also really love to spend mindful time with my kids. I really love to be with them and do something special. And kids are just as much a person as a grown-up, and the relationship you foster with them has to be the same as well. Like, you need to put effort and time and care into it. I already have a stressful life with all the jobs and adventures and witchery I do. Right now I feel like I can really handle it. I can still have little adventures with them together or separately, and like really take the time to listen and to cuddle and to do nice things. But I feel if I would have more kids to divide my attention and time, it would make it much harder. And I feel that's also true for my circle of friends. While I'm a very outgoing person, I do have a lot of acquaintances. I like to throw parties and invite people over. Like, my close circle is I keep very small, because to really be able to invest that time in people and relationships, I only have so much available. And even those people that are like the closest to my heart sometimes have to wait weeks to hear from me. There were many more questions that didn't get around to answer, but I shall in another Q&A at some point. I wish you a wonderful magical day. Goodbye, lovelies, and see you very soon. Bye bye.